after round one, you found yourself in New York State racing in a town called Pavilion. What was this race like, and how is it different from Muddy Creek?
Well, amazingly enough, the Pavilion New York race was in the venue itself was incredibly similar to Muddy Creek, which makes me happy because Muddy Creek being my home track, the dirt was similar, the terrain was similar. It was a real motocross track, and the fact that it was plowed pretty deep, it was watered pretty much, it had big jumps on it, and it had a lot of elevation change. So looking over the fence, my kind of track. I love it. Okay. Prior to going to Pavilion, though, I had to make carburation changes on the bike, had to actually change out the carburetor and some intake manifolds. And we did tests and everything was running fine. We get to New York and we go out and practice. And what do we do? The first thing we do is blow the engine up and practice at New York. No fault of anybody's own, just the circumstance was that CLUNKER acted clunky that day. So I have to come back in and change out a top end on the bike, change the motor pieces out.
That weekend there was
that hour from practice to the first moto. Now, the great news is I had parts. The better news is just prior to going to the Muddy Creek race, I had met a gentleman named Butch Sandegroff, and Butch became my primary sponsor for this entire nationals. And Butch's talents, or his involvement with my race program, was he knows everything Elsinore. He has all the parts, many of the parts, or access to, and he's a great mechanic.
What luck.
Yeah, it was. And he and I kind of put a strategic plan together that if this happens, we had a plan B. So we actually scheduled out catastrophes and what to do about it. He made sure I had spare motors, spare cylinders, spare pistons, rings,
and
whatever.
This was Butch's vintage cycle shop.
That is correct.
Same Butch.
Yes.
And so literally you cross paths with the guy who runs a vintage shop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how rare is that?
The story of meeting Butch is even more rare in the fact that back to JJ's in my practice ground, I had made a social media post about clearing a big jump on my Elsinore on, I believe, Facebook maybe. And Butch saw that post, and on his own efforts drove up to JJ's from south side of Atlanta. He's a good bit south of Atlanta. He drives up to JJ's one day just to hopefully be there and watch what's going on and catch me there. And coincidentally,
he didn't call you nothing, huh? That's cool.
No, it was just fate. And we met there, and Butch actually made a prediction to me that I would win the Muddy Creek National.
What was that? How was he basing that?
I think he has just been around vintage motocross a lot longer than I have.
And
he watched me ride.
When he saw CLUNKER, he's like, she's a winner.
No, he saw CLUNKER and said, that's a piece of junk, but we can make it a winner. Okay? So back to New York, I pull out some Butch's parts. I rebuild the engine. I go back out into the first moto, and I'm doing well. I'm winning, and everything's going fine. But I can hear CLUNKER talking to me, and it's not a good conversation. Okay, that's just it just didn't feel right. And on the last lap, CLUNKER seized up and started running. Same issue we had in practice. And I'm like, oh my gosh! And as I watched my competition go by me, I'm thinking, wow, what am I going to do? This whole national championship could come to an end right here. I got it cooled down, got the bike started back up rather quickly, a lot quicker than what I'm talking. And I got myself back to second place in that moto. Even after the seizure, I got it back, but it was limping it in at best. And so go back in. What do? Change out the cylinder again, pull more parts out of the car, put them back on CLUNKER, do some changes, go back out in the second moto. Got really lucky in the fact that I got a really good start, and I got out front. And even though CLUNKER was talking to me saying, this is not good, there's a problem, as an old school motocrosser, I knew how to ride him gently, if you will, and I knew how to do some things. There's some things that experts do. If you have a lean condition on a motorcycle and you need to keep it alive long enough to get to the finish line, you might pull the choke lever down and enrich in the fuel mixture up a little bit just for a few seconds and that'll cool the bike down. Or another trick that we do that most people don't know is hold the kill button in and run full throttle and just kill the motor. And then right before it dies, let the button back off. That injects a whole bunch of fuel into the cylinder. So I'm doing this the whole time in the second moto, and the bike's just cracking and popping, and you just think it's going to die at any minute. But I ended up getting to the finish line first and winning the moto even under those circumstances. So now I've won 2 nationals. So New York was great.
Straight out of Moto Cross out
You